like to call this October 6th regular meeting of the Strongsville Board of Education to order. Mr. Anagnastu, would you take the roll?
Sure. Colonel Evans?
Here.
Mr. Grozan?
Here.
Mrs. Ludwig?
Here.
Mr. Miko?
Here.
And Mr. Naso is not present.
Mr. Naso is not present. He had a prior work conflict. Please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
We now are going to discuss our district goals. We have 3 district goals: academic achievement and growth, financial prudence, and community engagement. One way to do financial prudence is to be efficient in everything we do, and I hope to be as efficient as possible with tonight's meeting. I do want to take a moment at this point to just recognize that our country has had quite a few tragedies, not just our country, but North America, South America, and I just want to take a moment to let everyone know that we are thinking about those who have been affected by Hurricane Harvey, especially those in Texas and Louisiana, Hurricane Irma, the Caribbean, Florida, Georgia, South Carolina, North Carolina have all had great effect and death. Hurricane Jose, Hurricane Maria, and the tragic results in Puerto Rico, Central Mexico and the earthquake last month, and then just recently the Las Vegas Strip shooting. I think reminds all of us what's important and what's not, and focuses us. So I hope everyone keeps those affected by these tragedies in your thoughts and in your prayers. And at this time, I will entertain any public comment. Seeing none, I turn it over to Superintendent Ryba.
Thank you, Mr. Miko. I did want to share one update with the board, and I'll have some slides on the screen for you. Jenny and I, the last couple of days, were in Columbus for the annual Superintendent's Conference, and one of the things that they shared at the last session was a legal update. And it was promising that the legal update was on some new legislation that's going to be introduced next Tuesday, the 10th, that's looking at deregulating some of what they called unfunded or underfunded mandates that the state has been put on our school district's plate. So I just thought I'd give a very high-level overview of what they're looking at and kind of some next steps. So, you know, we talk a lot about here, especially when the budget was coming out, about how our local voice matters. Our representatives hear us, and this is a great example where what we're going to share with you started with a conversation between a senator and a superintendent about all that's been put on the plates of public educators and public schools in the state. That expanded to a steering committee, which included additional meetings with additional representatives. And now Senator Huffman will be sponsoring this bill next week based on that initial conversation between a superintendent and their local senator. So there's 7 things that are on the list. And just, you know, although some of these are not, we don't think of as large dollar amount items, they do free up some of the human resources that we use to comply with all the regulations and requirements that the state has. So one of the items that's on the list is changes to teacher licensure and aid permits. In recent years, our state has become very convoluted in how we issue permits, who has to get a permit. We're not talking about individuals that should be background checked, but you know, permits that have to be given for every substitute employee that may be monitoring our students on the playground. Also, there's varied types of substitute permits that say you could only teach for 5 days in a row, or you can teach for longer than that. What is happening is we are starting to experience a teacher shortage in our country. It's also impacting us. We have one position at the middle school, our family consumer science position, that Mr. Dietrich and Ms. Pelko have been trying to fill. We don't have people that apply for these positions, and the state is trying to look at how they do that to help alleviate some of the challenges that we're having. And there's a lot of bullet points under these, but the other one that I would mention is what the state has implemented this year is that every teacher that teaches students identified as gifted And in the secondary level, that would be our honors courses and our AP offerings at the high school. We are no longer allowed to count those students as served unless they have 30 hours of professional development. I personally find that to be a ridiculous, I guess is the best word I can come up with, requirement from the state. As we send all of our AP teachers to extensive AP training to teach that course, we provide professional development to our honors teachers through our gifted consultants. So that's one of the things that's on the chopping block on this bill to eliminate, and we would greatly support. There's also language in there about the Ohio teacher evaluation system. We've given feedback at the state level that the performance aspect, the rubric aspect, is very beneficial in school. But the growth piece of it, the student growth measure, has not done what it is intended to do. They've referenced a figure yesterday that 96% of the teachers in the state of Ohio were either ranked skilled or accomplished last year. And we all know just on a normal bell curve that that is not a true reflection. And it's that growth measure that they're looking to do in a different way, which we support. They're also looking at doing a variety of things with the state report card, reducing some measures that are a little convoluted and are difficult to understand or be consistent upon. So we're excited to see what options will be there. You know, one of the things that student management and safety, this is one of the things that there's those unintended consequences. So the legislation last year passed a new bill, it was House Bill 410, right, Jenny? On student attendance. It is so convoluted and complex of what you have to do. Nobody understands it. Nobody can give you a straight answer. Now, Jenny and her team have done a phenomenal job of developing the letters to notify parents if their children are absent, intervention plans if students are absent. But this is something that they're looking at right now. They have all sorts of notification requirements if a child is absent for an excused reason. A parent calls them in and says, hey, my child's sick. There's all these hoops we have to jump through even if they call them off sick. We want to target those students that aren't coming to school, that their parents aren't reporting them off, and they should be in school. This will give us some relief for that. Moving on to College Credit Plus, I thought one of the great suggestions that they have is actually legislating some research to see, is the intended purpose of College Credit Plus actually doing what it was supposed to do, which was to save students money on college tuition and reducing the time to take to get a college degree. Is it actually doing that? Nobody knows because nobody's asked the question, and they're taking a hard look at textbook costs. Right now, the district pays for 100% of the textbooks. The challenge is, for any of us that have gone to college, professors love to change the textbook every semester. And so we buy the textbooks, we pay for them, and they say, okay, high school or school district, we're gonna try and keep consistent, and then the next year it's a whole new set of textbooks. And so we can't reuse textbooks year to year, so there's some textbook pieces there. Preschool operating standards, they're looking to make them consistent with the standards placed for students with disabilities. And finally, the resident educator program. This was eliminated from the budget, and the governor vetoed it to put it back in. And so they're taking another attempt at giving more local control to what a mentoring program would look like. So Jenny and I both feel strongly in an induction program, and we like components of the resident educator program, but we do feel that with some local control, we can make it meaningful to the teachers in Strongsville. So those are some of the highlights of what's included in the bill. Next Tuesday, it would be introduced, and kind of after it gets its number, it gets introduced, we will start to work with our communications to share what we view as important aspects of the bill with Representative Patton and Senator Dolan to try and continue that grassroots efforts to make sure that this takes it from concept to actually action and implementation, hopefully sometime this school year. So that's the update on the legislation that I wanted to share with the board.
Was there any talk of overcoming the funding deficit that was imposed by the governor?
There wasn't talk officially. We are, from the group we were at, we are a member, obviously, as the Alliance for High Quality Education. So I talked with Tony Potagil, who is the president of that, and he did share that there is work being done. He doesn't see that there's a clear light at the end of the tunnel yet, but there is work and conversations being had about how the draw-off could be reduced from what it is currently, which is it's eliminated.
Okay.
Any other questions?
No, the only input I would have for you is that the tendency of all the bureaucracies I've ever seen is to spend lots of time studying things and no action. I would say that from our standpoint, from your inputs at least, I would strongly suggest that we urge action
Correct.
on all of these things.
Absolutely.
So, and obviously, we'll make sure to inform the public at the appropriate time, but as this works through the legislature, as Cameron mentioned, local input matters, and letting Senator Dolan and Representative Patton know that this is important to us will matter at the appropriate time. And I guess the cynic in me just wants to make sure that if these things are enacted, it doesn't turn into a way of saying, hey, we gave you all of this relief, and that's how we're gonna justify cutting you again. We need this relief. It seems very common to me that bureaucracies get bigger and bigger, and the burdens become bigger, because all of these things are good things to address. But the intentions and the actual outcomes oftentimes are different. So I think it's a great first start, and we'll pay attention and add our voice at the appropriate time.
And with that, Mr. Micko, that concludes my report.
Excellent. Moving on to Board of Education, other, why don't we start at George's end, and we'll work our way to the left.
Just want to remind everybody, the PTA has their Rockin' at the Rec tomorrow evening. And then on the 17th, in the mall, Where We're From is the name of the?
Where I'm from.
Where I'm From. They will be selling the T-shirts that say The Ville, that benefits the Strongsville Educational Foundation, and that money will go towards our field trips. The T-shirts are $29, but all proceeds will go right to the Educational Foundation and then to our kids. So tomorrow and then the 17th, and then that's it for me.
Duke?
Just informational, November the 12th, which is the weekend of Veterans Day, there's a proposal, informational only now, that we do nothing NFL on that day. To let the NFL know that kneeling during the national anthem is not acceptable conduct. And I know I speak on behalf of the veterans of VFW 3345 in Strongsville and numerous other veterans organizations throughout the country that are going to be taking part in that. So anybody else that wants to take part, you can turn your TVs off, spend time with your kids, read to them, and do anything but watch an NFL football game on the 12th. Thank you.
Thank you, Duke. I had the opportunity to talk to Ken Mahalko earlier in the week, and let's see, Ken was our previous Mr. King, who was our previous Mr. Harbart. But he is, as the director of the Strongsville Community Band, they came together, and they're going to be presenting a benefit for hurricane relief victims. It's going to be called Help and Hope Through Music, and it's going to be Sunday, October 29th at 3 p.m. It'll be at our Strongsville Middle School auditorium, which we're excited to be able to offer that and have that community engagement and working together with the Strongsville Community Band. There is no admission charge, so you can come and enjoy the music, but there will be a donation or a free will offering, and all donations will go to the American Red Cross and the Salvation Army for the benefit of the different hurricane relief efforts. And in addition, if you arrive early, the Strongsville City Jazz Swing Band will be making a special appearance and will be performing in the cafeteria at 2:30 p.m. So certainly, if you're available, that's a worthwhile endeavor. And then piggybacking on Cameron's comments on the legislative efforts, I wanted to highlight that Ohio is receiving a $35 million literacy grant from the U.S. Department of Education, and 95% of that grant is going to be targeting children that are particularly challenged for reading and literacy, whether they're living in poverty or whether they're students with disabilities or English learners or having a reading disability. So obviously we want to be aware of that and see what we can do in Strongsville. Jane, do you have anything?
I do. Thank you, Mr. Micko. Two things. I wanted to remind everyone that any cans, aluminum cans that are donated to the drop-off boxes at our fire stations, all the proceeds from those cans go to fund the third grade fire safety trucks that are taken around to all the schools to teach about fire safety. So if you have some extra cans lying around, the fire station would appreciate those and the district would as well, so we can continue that program. And then just a personal thank you to all the police officers that monitor our football games, because we have fortunately had some very large crowds, and crossing Lund Road is sometimes dicey, even with the officer with his vest flashing wand and everything. So I just urge everyone to really be careful when you're driving around after and before the football games, because they really are taking their lives into their hands trying to help us pedestrians cross the street. So just wanted to give a shout out to them.
And then this just came in, so this is last minute updates. I need to remind everyone that our 2017 car raffle for the Chevy Trax is still ongoing. Tickets are going, and they're going fast, and they probably will not be available on October 20th at the home football game, which is when we will pull the winning ticket. And the very next day, the athletic boosters are having their night at the races, and I've been just told there are 4 tickets left for the night at the races. So if there are 4 people listening, you better get your tickets now. Any
Jane,
others?
Do you want to mention, because our next board meeting is going to be the 25th, about the 21st at the Historical Society, trick or treat?
Oh, that's right. Well, you know what? It's kind of sold out, so I
Is
don't
it?
want to. Yeah.
Okay.
I think we have several hundred people coming, but yes, every year the Historical Society has a trick or treat for the preschooler children, and the only donation is to benefit the Strongsville Food Bank. But I think we have several hundred people already coming.
Got it.
I will be there in costume handing out candy, and it's a Sunday afternoon. It's a delightful night or day because it's safe.
So I believe that concludes our Board of Education Other. We do have need for executive session on the topics of.
To prepare for and review negotiations or bargaining sessions with public employees concerning their compensation or other terms and conditions of their employment.
So moved.
Second.
Motion by Colonel Evans, second by Mrs. Ludwig. Mr. Anagnostou.
Colonel Evans?
Yes.
Mrs. Ludwig?
Yes.
Mr. Micko?
Yes.
Mr. Grozan?
Yes.
Motion passes. Enter an executive session at
7:20, and we have a baseball game, so we will be efficient. Thank you very much, and have a good evening.